Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to do the first book in the Finally series by Elena Aitken. I think I said it right. And there's a reason I'm only doing the first book in the series, and I'm going to describe that reason as we get into the review. So, the book we are going to review today is book one, and it is called Finally Yours. We meet Abigail, and she's working at a country club in Aspen Valley, Colorado. She has been working there for a very short time because not too long ago, after 10 years of marriage, her husband Daniel was convicted of embezzlement. She knew he was a cheater, so he was a cheat that way too. But she did overlook it. But then, of course, that means that she lost everything and now she has to work. She's also started going back to school, and she has gotten an email from the school saying that the next semester is going to be about 11 grand. So her grandmother left her money when she died, which was probably like a little over a year ago. And that money covers most of her schooling, but it still doesn't cover all of it, and of course her books. So she is now working at this country club that she was once a member of. And two of the women that she was once friends, or I guess friends with, are coming into the shop. The names of the women are Bitsy, ain't that a name, and Janine. So Bitsy comes up to her and sees that she has her cell phone out and says, "You're not supposed to have your cell phone. That's against policy. You might want to put that away. I don't want to have to report you." I was like, sheesh. So she, of course, puts away the cell phone because she's not trying to cause any problems. She, of course, has to, when she speaks to them, call them by their last name, very formal. Very degrading for her, especially being that not too long ago she was a part of this society. But apparently she didn't really act like these people. But then again, I'm kind of like, but you are around them. But anyway, I digress. So they go, they shop, they pick up stuff, won't put it back where it belongs. They're just assholes, basically. They finally leave. But actually, before Janine leaves, she purchases some shoes, and she was about to kind of keep some of the change. She literally thought about that because she's like, she's not going to miss it. She doesn't really need it. And then she goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm not Daniel. Like, I can't do that." Right? I was like, oh my gosh. But I mean, she's in a bind, and I guess when you're in a bind, your mind works crazy. They finally leave, and she has to put some things up on a high shelf. So she gets a ladder, climbs up, and she hears someone say her name, Abigail. She knows who the voice is. It belongs to Philip Conrad. So her and Philip used to date when she was still in college, because he's like 5 years older than her. So he was already into his career. But she was still in college. And all we know is that they apparently had a very intense relationship, but they never had sex. But there was always like really intense sexual energy between the two of them. And she never really understood what happened or why he just kind of fell off. But this is that guy. So kind of feels like the one that got away, right? So he comes up behind her and he's like, you really shouldn't be on a ladder by yourself. And she's like, "I'm okay." Well, he can look up her skirt, and girl doesn't have on any underwear today. She's going commando because she forgot to do laundry. So she promptly gets down. The reason Philip came in there, he wanted to give her the blazer that he had to wear because some places have dress codes. So in their dining area, you have to have on a blazer. So he was returning the lone blazer for her to have to take it back. So she's like, "Okay, fine," or whatever. So he leaves. Of course, there's all this sexual chemistry going on between the two of them. It's so funny to read. This was a great read. And so he leaves and she goes to do a couple things around the store, and when she goes to take it, like leave with it to go take it back to the dining hall, a money clip falls out, and it's a lot of money in that clip. She counts it, it's like over $20,000. And so of course the thoughts come again, he wouldn't miss it, you know? And this time she gives into the little voice in her head and she takes a couple bills off. And then we switch to Philip's POV, which I love. And he's walking back to the what is it called? Is it a club? It's not a clubhouse. It's like the store that they have, like the pro golf club type of thing where you get your different shoes, your clothes, all that type of stuff. There's another basic name for that, and for some reason that is eluding me right now. So he comes back because he realizes he left money in his pocket, in that blazer, in that jacket. And he walks in just in time to see her taking the money. I was like, OSHI to the T. Philip says to her, "What the hell are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm not doing anything." He's like, "I just saw you." And she would not admit to taking that money for anything in the world. And so he's having all kind of thoughts in his head now, because he, of course, is like, how can I use this to my advantage? And it's crazy because he's having those thoughts. He's having these sexual thoughts as well. She's having the sexual thoughts as well. It's so funny to read. So he makes a bet with her. He says, "I have a charity function tomorrow night. I need a date too." No, not, was it the next day or the next couple days? Next few days. That he needs a date to. And he goes, "If you stay through dinner and breakfast," so basically like 48 hours, "I will not go to management on you. You can keep the money." And her first thought was like, "I'm not a prostitute, And he's like, "I don't think of you that way." And he was just trying to figure out a way to get time with her. It's like, dude, you could have just asked, but he chose this method. And so she, of course, she's like, "I don't know," but he's like, "You know what? I'll give you until tomorrow to give me an answer." And she is like, she doesn't know what to say. Because what is she going to say? She's not going to tell him absolutely no now because she's terrified about losing her job. He tells her he will be back the next evening for his answer. So then we switch back to Abigail's POV. And Abigail is with her friends, and she's at, one of her friends owns a diner. Her name's Jessie. Jessie has a set of twins, and she's a divorcee. Then there's Darla. That's the friend that she's been single her whole life. She constantly has hookups. She's fun, Then there's Brittany. She's the CEO of a tech company. And Sandy is a widower, and she has I think she has two children too. Yeah, she got a couple kids too. So these people are going to be the subjects of the next, like, how many ever books they have in the series. I think it's like 4 or 5 total. So it's all their stories. So that's why I'm not going to review them, because I'll read them, but I'm just not going to review them. But this is just a help to get, a good starter to see if you would want to continue and read these books. Because like I said, this one is a really good read. So I believe the other ones, will be as well. So she's having this discussion with her girls. She's told them what she's done and about this proposal that he has given her. And of course, everyone has their different, opinions about it. Brittany, who's the CEO of the tech company, kind of looked at her and was just kind of like, why didn't you ask me? And the first thing Abby says is, no, there's no way I could ask you that. And I'm just kind of like, so you are okay with stealing instead of just asking someone who is really your friend. Like, these are her true friends. They have been friends since they were like 12, 13 years old. Okay? And they're all now in their early 40s. So these are your friends that you've known most of your life. And they know what you've gone through, right? They know that you were in this marriage. Your husband embezzled. It left you with nothing. Like, they know all these things about you. And yet you thought the best option would be to do the exact same thing, different levels, right? But the exact same thing that your ex-husband thought, that because they're rich, it doesn't matter. They should be able to go without, and it's not a big deal because they don't really need it. And it's just kind of like, who the heck are you to decide what someone needs and what someone deserves when that's their money? However they got it, whether it was through inheritance, whether it was through hard work, that's their money. So you don't get to dictate what someone should, be okay with losing out on. You don't have that right. So I didn't understand her logic with that. I just really didn't. I understand not wanting to ask for help. I get that. But I'm not going to ask for help, but I'm going to just steal from somebody. That logic to me just doesn't work. Not when you have actually good friends. Like, if these were piece of shit friends and you didn't trust them, and it was a whole bunch of bullshit, then I understand that. But these are supposed to be your genuine, true friends that you can be your full self with, and yet you couldn't do that. I don't know. That just was like, I can't feel sorry for you that you got trapped up in this bullshit, because she also stated that when she was married to her husband, Daniel, she kind of knew that something wasn't, like, he wasn't fully on the up and up. She just didn't know to the extent. So she kind of turned a blind eye to it. So you're in this situation because you turned that blind eye to what was really going on. So even more so, I still don't get how you feel like you get to determine, you're judge and jury. You get to decide that you could take these people's money and that they don't need it. You know what I mean? Her logic just didn't make any type of sense to me. Like, I thought she was, because of that she had these friends that she'd known most of her life, that, I don't know, stuff like that wouldn't have really fully crossed her mind, because she would have, I don't know, it just didn't make sense to me. And maybe I'm overthinking it. I do have a tendency to do that. But I just didn't see how that made sense. I would rather that you would rather steal than ask your friend to help you. And if it's a matter of, paying back or whatever, that's, you all can come to some type of an agreement of how that's going to work. If you need to, write it out, however you need to do it, you can do that with your friend, right? Especially when you have someone who will offer to help you. It's just, I don't know, the shit just seems so goddamn weird to me. Sure enough, the next day when he comes to the shop, she tells him yes. So Friday she will be reporting to his home. So she gets there on Friday. He had set up a room for her. Beautiful colors. He even had lingerie in there. He had clothes in there for her. Lots of stuff. Lots of more than just what would have been for like 3 days. He had like a lot of stuff in there for her. And everything in the house, the rest of the house kind of seemed the same, because this is the same house he had when they dated all those years ago. But of course, some furniture and things had changed. But the feel of the house was still the same. And so when she sees the lingerie in the drawer, she's happy to see it. But now she's trying to figure out, is this his way of demanding that I wear it, or is it because he remembers how much I like lingerie? So then she decides to go marching to his study. And he's looking at her like, why haven't you changed yet? She wasn't supposed to change it to lingerie. She's supposed to get ready for dinner at like 4 o'clock. 4 or 5, right? That was it. And she's like, is this what you think of me? You think because you bought me this, I'm going to sleep with you? That I have to? Like I'm a whore? And he looks at her and he's like, I would never think that way of you, you know? And I don't like when people do this type of shit. Instead of just asking the fucking questions, they do the whole dance of acting as if a person is trying to insult them, like you're playing games. And it's just like, all you had to fucking say was, did you buy this for me? You know? Did you buy this for me assuming that I'm going to sleep with you? Like, does this mean I have to sleep with you? Like what is this about? You could have just flat out asked the man, instead of making a whole scene. Like, get it together, you know? So he told her, listen, you can keep the money. I'm not going to report you. And if you want to leave, you can. Like, that's not what I wanted. That's not why I wanted you here. So that made her feel good. But I just don't like that it's like you got to play a fucking game to get an answer. And he doesn't seem like, even though he caused this shit, you know, by giving this ultimatum to her. And again, it started this whole crap. But it just, I don't know, it just irked me that she felt like she couldn't just ask him. Like, we already in this position. You done seen me take your money. You know, like, there shouldn't be no fucking secrets. I should be able to ask you what the fuck I want to ask you. You know what I mean? So she left. She goes, puts on the lingerie, and then she comes back to his study. He, of course, is shocked. And, of course, he gets hard as hell. And so then he's like, he can't walk away from her. But he's like, I have to, right? Because they were like really close to each other. And so when he goes to walk away, she pulls him and they have this extremely passionate kiss. And she says that his kisses have always felt like his life depended on it. And it was no different now. And so they're getting all hot and heavy. She's on the desk. He's fingering her. She's saying, you know, she blurted out. No, she wanted to blurt out what she actually felt for him, which is something extremely deep, but she's never been able to say it. So she just blurts out that she missed him. And girl was like ready to do the damn thing. And so she is going for his zipper and she made the comment, this is what you wanted, right? And he stopped. And she's like, why are you stopping? And he's like, this isn't how I wanted it to be. He's like, this is not what I was trying to make you do. She tells him, like, I meant it, you know, that, you know, I've missed you, you know, and stuff like that. But he told her again, like, you can leave. And he told her, I'm not going to tell your boss or anything. You can keep the money. So she, of course, felt completely rejected. And then she left. So then we switch to Philip's POV and we get a flashback of how him and Abigail met. It was a really cute story. So they met at a grocery store. He was there buying microwavables. She was buying a salad. They bumped into each other. They got to talking. And by the end of the conversation, she offered him to share the salad with him. And they were inseparable for like the next 4 months. So they would kiss and stuff like that. But he would never take it too far because he always thought of her, that she was different. And he wanted to treat her as such. He had never felt that way about another woman. And so he wanted to, you know, treat her completely different. So on this night, he has decided he's going to tell her, this is 4 months later, by the way, he's going to tell her how he really felt about her. that he loved her. But what winds up happening is that when he says it to her, Daniel, who has been friends with him since he was like 3 years old, has just come back from Europe. And so he slaps him on the back and is like, hey, dude, like, I thought you would have picked me up from the airport. And then he sees Abigail and says, and who's this beautiful woman? And so the way that she blushed, it immediately made Philip draw back. Daniel was the charmer. He always had been. He could always get the women. And so he just felt like this is just Daniel having his effect on another woman. There's nothing I can do. And he basically gave up. But of course, he doesn't want to do that now. But I'm like, dude, it sounds like you're doing the same shit. So our girl Abby, she doesn't leave. She goes, she takes an hour-long hot shower. And when she came out, Miss McLean, who's the housekeeper, she had laid out like some cheeses, like a little charcuterie board, and she texted her girlfriends, and they were like, "Oh no, like this is requiring like a video chat." So they have this video chat, and they of course were like, "Okay, so where are you now?" And she's like, "Well, I'm still here." And they're like, "Well, why are you still there?" And she's like, "I don't know." They're like, "Stop lying. You do know." And she's like, "Because I like him." But she knows it's more than like, it's always been more than like when it came to Philip Conrad. But she, of course, has this thing of, I can't describe it. Or maybe she says I can't describe it, but I feel like she just doesn't want to admit that that's what she feels. Because maybe she feels like I shouldn't feel this strongly for this individual. Because that can happen. I understand that. So she's going to stay. That's her decision. So Philip's in his office. He's having a hard time concentrating. He's got cameras everywhere. So he can see her. She's at the pool. She's got on this little skimpy bikini that he picked out. It's white with cherries on it. And he picked the one with cherries because one time they had stopped by a fruit stand on the side of the road and had some of the best cherries ever. And so he knew she would pick it. So he barely got any work done, but it is what it is. So then we go back to Abigail's POV and we find out she remembers what happened that day that Daniel arrived. She thought she heard him say, I love you. But he said it, of course, at the same time that Daniel had burst in and started talking. And the way that he kind of went cold towards her, she thought, oh, I didn't hear that. And so she was blushing because she felt awkward having attention on her. And she had looked to Philip to get her out of it. But when she saw him go cold on her, it was like, oh. So what starts happening after that is he kind of just fizzles out. Like at one point they all three were going places together, and then he would just be like, oh, you two should go, you two. So he pushed them together because he was under this notion that Daniel was going to win her anyway, which is lame as FUC to the K. I'm just saying. So later that evening, they get to the event. All eyes are on them. And she, of course, super nervous because it's at that country club that she works and used to be a member of. He told her, you have nothing to be nervous about. You're the strongest woman I know. And so they go in, and of course, all eyes are on them. After a while, she goes to the bathroom. And she's in the stall. She's texting her friends, telling them how it's going. And they basically was like, listen, don't overthink it. Enjoy yourself. You deserve it. So then she hears Bitsy and Janine. And her little fake old friends come in. And they're talking about her. And they're like, can you believe she had the nerve to show up here after she and her husband stole all our money? And then she said, and can you believe that she came here with Philip? I believe he was in on it because he's always been so desperately in love with her all these years. And then they said something about how she had basically broken his heart by parading around with Daniel all these years. And I mean, they're just saying all kind of crap. So at first she wasn't gonna come out of the stall. But then she was like, you know what, screw that. I'm not the same person I was before. I'm gonna deal with them. Because when she was with her husband Daniel, she would, not cause any stir with the friends. She was supposed to stay friends with people, make sure she was invited to all of the exclusive parties, every event. Like, she was supposed to be the top dog of the wives, and she really was. Daniel was the top dog with the men. But I also think he kind of had her doing that because he was scamming people, and he needed more people to scam. So he kept having her try and move in all of the circles. That's what I think was probably happening as well. So she comes out and she says, "Nice to see you ladies." She starts washing her hands, and they tried to do this fake, "Oh, glad to see you." And she just kind of went in on Bitsy and told her, "You shouldn't wear green. It's a bad color on you." The woman was wearing a black dress. I thought that was hilarious. Green with envy. Um, she also said, what else did she say? She says, "Let me get out of here because, it'd be crazy for me to stay in this bathroom with you women when I have this crazy hot man waiting for me. He's the finest, the most successful man in the room. Let me go enjoy myself." And she leaves. So then when she gets outside of the bathroom, of course, she has to take a deep breath. So Philip is having a drink, and he's watching that hallway where the restroom is because he knows that's where she went. And he's waiting to see if she's okay because she's taking a little longer than he thought. So then an old friend of his named Trent comes up. He's like a land developer, and he's possibly moving into town. He doesn't know just yet. And so they're going to catch up. And then he sees Abby come out. She doesn't look the greatest. And he, of course, leaves Trent there, like, "All right, guy, I'll talk to you later." He gets a glass of champagne and brings it to her, and it's like, "Looks like you need it." Then Betsy and Janine come out of the bathroom, and he clearly sees what happened. And she's like, "I'm fine," but he could tell she really wasn't. And then she asks, "Can we go?" But he was like, one more thing. So he takes her on the dance floor, and they have this magical dance, beautiful time, dance to a few songs. And she asked him while they were on the dance floor, "Why am I here?" And he says, "Why do you think you're here?" And she says, "I don't know. At first I was thinking this was some type of sick, twisted game. But then I thought that's not who Philip is." And then he said to her, you know, "It's not about revenge because, that's not how I operate either." He's like, "I thought this for you would be, redemption." And he told her, "You were treated awful and it shouldn't have been that way. And I just wanted to have a moment to show, um, to show you how you should have been treated, to appreciate you." It was really sweet what he said to her. And then right on the dance floor, after they're having the whole confession, he tells her, "I need to tell you the truth." And he says that, "I have loved you since the beginning for over 15 years. Like, I never stopped." And I was like, oh my gosh. And she, of course, is like, "He does love me. I did hear him right that day." And it was so cute. They had like this passionate kiss. And then she asked him, well, she pushed him away, and she said, "Well, why didn't you fight?" And he's like, "I beat myself up every day, for all these years." Because he didn't have an answer. And he was basically like, "I just don't think I deserved you. I wasn't worthy of you." And he says, "I do believe that I am the man now that is." And so she's like, "Let's go home." And so he takes her out of there. They don't touch each other while they're in the car, but as soon as they get into the house, they're ripping off each other's clothes, kissing extremely passionately. He was about to screw her against the wall, but he stopped because he was like, he wanted to take his time with her. And she's like, "I don't want that. Like, I need you inside me now." So he was about to go in again, and he stopped again. And she's like, "Now what? Like, what is the problem?" And she's like, I don't get it. And he tells her, I don't want just a part of you. I want all of you. And she's like, Philip, it's always been you. You've always had all of me. And I'm like, girl, not really. Because you did kind of go and marry somebody else. Not to, I mean, you can marry anybody and have affection and feelings for other people. We know that. But I'm like, girl, you couldn't even describe what you felt. Like, come on. But she tells him it's always been you. I've always felt like it. Even if I couldn't admit it to myself. Um, she was just like that intensity that she had, has for him. And then she kept saying to him how much she was like, I love you. And then he finally slammed into her. They didn't last too long. She came hard and he did too. Hot scene to read. They, of course, had a whole sex fest that lasted through the night. They screwed in so many different rooms, eventually winding up in the master bedroom. She was sore, but girl was ready for him again. And the minute um, she said no, I think he told her he loved her, she was ready for him again. So after they finished, they finally went to the kitchen to eat. And then she said, well, I got to go, back to my place. And he said, what? And she's like, well, I only brought clothes for this weekend. And so he goes into panic mode. And he's like, did you mean what you said to me? And she's looking at him like, what? And he says, did you mean what you said to me? Did you mean that you love me? And she's like, yes. She's like, never doubt that. She's like, I still have stuff I have to take care of. She's like, and then I have to go to work on Monday. And he says, you will not step foot back in that place unless it's because you want to go there. He's like, I know you're in school. He's like, I will handle that for you. I'll take care of that for you. Um, he's like, because you never should have quit anyway. You should have gotten your degree. And he let her know he wants to be her partner in life. He knows that she's strong. She's independent. He's like, but I hope you would just allow me to help you. It was really sweet. And so she realizes that, this man truly loves her. He wants this. And she jokingly said to him, are you trying to tell me you want to marry me? And he's like, I will. But for right now, I just want you to move in. And just for us to be together, like it should have been all those years ago. And so then they kissed. And when he looked into her eyes, he could tell she made the decision. She was going to do it. So Abigail's at her place. She's packing up her stuff. She's with her friends. They're helping her. And they at first were like, are you sure? And she's like, I'm absolutely sure. We've loved each other for over 15 years. There's no point in waiting. And all her friends agreed. And Abigail was like, we need to make a pact, like basically to push one another to go for it. And if you're not certain about something, they'll do a group vote. She just really wants to see her friends happy. And she was like, just like I find my happiness, you all are going to find yours too. You deserve what I have and even more. And I love people like that. That's just so beautiful. It's like, why everyone in the world can't be that way? And so Sandy, who's the more conservative one, and she's also the widow, they were afraid she wasn't going to agree to it because she kind of had been living like a nun. But her husband had told her, promise me you won't live like that. And she's like, he would be so disappointed in me because that's exactly what I've done. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to step out there. I'm going to try. And we also find out all of the friends are going to basically step out of their comfort zone. Darla, I mean, the only thing different for Darla would be if she found got into a relationship, because she doesn't do relationships. But the rest of them, they're all determined they are going to do it, and I was like, good for them. Um, Philip has drinks with Trent. Trent has decided he is going to stay in Aspen Valley. Um, the drink was very short because he got a text from Abigail saying, hey, I'm ready. And Philip was like, all right, dude, I'm gone. And so Philip was like, I'll pay for the drink since I got to go. And Trent was like, wow, she must be something. And he said, she's not something. He's like, she's everything. That was so sweet. So then they go back to his place, well, their place now. They have drinks, they're having wine. They're on the couch. They're having a little conversation. She basically wanted to know, you know, what if he hadn't caught her, you know? And he confesses to her that the only reason he brought the coat in there was an excuse to talk to her. And I was like, "Oh." But again, see, he could have just asked. He could have just talked to her. But I guess he's I guess he said we got a corner just in case. I'm like, good grief. So they start kissing, and then he goes down. He starts eating her pussy, and then they have this nice hard fuck. And then he said to her, um, like throughout the whole session, they kept saying how much they love each other. And then she asked him, well, no, she made a statement that she was kind of glad that they didn't, get together back then. And he tensed up. And she was like, I just mean, you know, would we have had the same thing back then? And he told her, I can't agree to that because it has always felt like this for me. It's always felt like something was missing. And I just think the dude loved her. And I think sometimes you just have an intense infection. I did not say infection. You have an intense affection for someone, and you're just going to feel that way, you know? So for him, I don't think it was going to go anywhere. I think because she couldn't admit it or couldn't figure it out, or however you want to put it, maybe that's why she views it that way. You know, she's older now. She can more so identify, like, this is what I am feeling. And sometimes when you're younger, it could be a little bit more difficult. But for him, I think it was always her. I think her mindset was kind of like, almost like you kind of have to be with someone who isn't that great to appreciate greatness. And I don't really agree with that. I think that's her way of maybe forgiving herself for making the decision that she did of marrying Daniel and the type of marriage that she remained in and wouldn't leave. So I think that's why she's saying that for herself. Because I don't think you have to go through all that, you know? If that's it for you, that's it. And then he says to her, well, she says, you're mine. And she says, yep, I'm finally yours. So then her birthday's coming up. Her friends want to throw her a party, but then they realize, you know what? Her man probably wants to do something special for her. And so he had asked her, do you trust me? It's on her birthday. And she's like, yes. And so he gives her some underwear that has a vibrator attached to it that's like rat on the clit. And so then she puts them on. They go to dinner. And of course, he starts tapping on the remote. And of course, she's having these intense vibrations throughout dinner. And when she got to the point where she couldn't take it anymore, he's like, let's get out of here. So when they get in the car, because he had a driver. So when they get in the back of the car, she says to him, she's like, I can't take it. She's like, basically, you need to like open your pants now. And so he does, and she of course sits on his lap, and they have this hard fuck. And they both came on beautifully. And then he takes her to the spot where they had this beautiful picnic one night. And this was a night that he absolutely knew he loved her. But unfortunately, then he didn't say anything. So he chose this to be the place where he proposed to her. And he, of course, tells her how much he loves her. And, of course, she says yes. And so they're finally going to get to have their happily ever after. I thought this was so stinking sweet. I really did. Again, I'm going to read those other books because this wasn't a long read. I think it was like 165 pages. It was not long at all. So I definitely want to read the other books. I think you all should read them as well. I think they're going to be cute reads. I am curious to see how they're going to meet whom and how they're going to wind up with whom. I am interested in that. Let me know what you guys think of Finally Yours. Drop down in the comment section. Also, if you have any suggestions for any books you'd like for me to review, I probably should put review and rant because I do a lot of rants in here too. Drop down in the comments and put those there as well. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook, I do have those on sale, and those links will be listed in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.